Okay, so we've looked at Roberto Firmino and how he performs in Liverpool's side so far. What I wanted to come on to in the next part of the show is not really related to Roberto Firmino stuff, but I wanted to look at whether Liverpool can play the 3-4-3 that Antonio Conte plays at Chelsea. And the reason for that is the fact that we did move to it second half. We've moved to a 3 at the back, certainly. So I thought I'd start off by maybe just showing everybody what it is Antonio Conte does with that 3-4-3. So we'll start off with the goalkeeper who goes there, David Luiz. This would be maybe Azpilicueta, Gary Cahill, Victor Moses, Marcus Alonso. Then you've probably got Kante and Matic in the centre there. And then you'd have something along the lines of Pedro with Hazard and then Diego Costa up top there. And I think one of the main advantages of a 3-4-3, is that, you know, you've got these 3 centre-backs here, and Antonio Conte's done it a couple of different ways. I know certainly with Juventus he relied a little bit more on these 2 centre-backs to bring the ball forward, but what he's got at Chelsea is he's got David Luiz, and David Luiz is able to bring the ball forward here and maybe hit this space. And these guys here are the real sort of linchpins to this formation. Marcus Alonso is able to attack the space down the right, down the left, and then Victor Moses is able to attack the space down the right. Now, what this leaves is this threesome here of Pedro, Hazard, and Diego Costa to essentially cause havoc, isn't it? So they've got the choice of either going inside or straight ahead, and basically causing an overload wherever they are on the pitch. So you can almost imagine it where you've got 4 defenders and 2 centre-backs normally would just be around Costa. Costa would occupy one of those centre-backs there. And then you've got these 2 hitting the space, but you've also got these hitting the full-backs. So you can see there already that they've got 5 players to attack against 4 players, which is what's been so good about Chelsea. It's always about that overload, and you know, it also gives them the option to do this and then that man to hit that space there and keep that fluidity moving going forwards. And from a defensive point of view, when they're defending, these 2 drop in. So now you've got a flat back 5 with the 3 main centre-backs. You've got your right back and your left back in Victor Moses and Marcus Alonso. You've still got your 2 centre midfielders, and your 2 inside forwards, Pedro and Hazard, will drop into a 4-man midfield, making it very, very difficult to score against them. And what I wanted to ask you now, John, is now we've seen a little bit of how Chelsea use that 3-4-3 formation. You know, you've studied it as well. How do you think Liverpool players could possibly fit into this next one, mate?
I think they could fit into it in a few different ways. I think we struggle really in the wing backs. I think we don't think about it before, and I think there's people who can play those positions. You know, I can definitely see Milner playing there and Klein, but I think it's the cliche that the specialist positions, but I think you need someone who's there who's good going forward and good getting back. And I kind of trust Milner to do it because I think he's good in a tackle. You know, he's got the engine. Whether he's got the legs anymore, he seems tired the last few weeks. I don't know, but I don't know whether Klein's necessarily got it. I mean, I suppose you would have said Moses wouldn't have had it for Chelsea necessarily, but I think we'd lack there. You know, I think the obvious player who probably would fit would be Mane, but then you're sacrificing having him where you want him, you know, at the top end of the pitch to do the most damage.
It's quite interesting. I must admit, I do kind of disagree slightly on the Milner and Kleiny front, but we'll come on to that when we go through the defence and stuff. So if you want to start with your defence then, please, mate.
Where's Mignolet?
So I think the idea now is we're going to start with a goalkeeper. We're going to build that back 3, as it were, and see whether we think we've got the players to at least do what Chelsea do. So we've gone with Tammy Mignolet in goal.
Mignolet in goal. 3 at the back. You've got Lovren.
Yeah, so we'll go with that there. Are you thinking Lovren left centre, Matip centre? Is that the way you're going so far?
No, actually, I think I'll put Lovren on the right.
Okay.
And is Klavan in this, or is he in the second?
Klavan is in the second tier player. I'll get them.
I'd probably put him on the left, I think.
Okay, so we've got Klavan there. I'll hold these guys for you now. Okay, so, I mean, for me, the goalkeeper's still going to be a problem. I think you know that as well. But it's a choice right now between Mignolet and Karius. And right now, Mignolet's got the shirt, and as such, I can't see any problems with that. Do you think that we replicate that Chelsea 3-4-3? Or do you think it's going to be these guys that are going to be the ones who can maybe push on and create the space? Or are you happier to see Matip do that and leave these 2 back?
I think we replicate it personally. I mean, I know Matip's played DM for Schalke and stuff, and you know he's got a history of playing in a bit of midfield, so I think he'd be comfortable going forward with it, and I think that's where he excels. You know, he could help us if we struggled in the middle of the park. The one thing I do worry about slightly looking at it is I think I think Klavan and Matip are both kind of good on the ball. I don't think Lovren is. So I do wonder whether it'd be better to put him there and then have them either side, because I think they're comfortable in space, and you've got to be comfortable in space if you're going to play there. So maybe swapping those would be better than having him in the middle, but I think on balance, I think it works like that for me.
Okay. Well, should we put the wing backs in then? Because I think that's a really tough one, isn't it? Who are you thinking?
I'm thinking Klein and Milner.
So no shots for this man here, Alberto Moreno.
I'd forgot about him. I think going again, I think it's the same thing where he struggles at fullback. I think he's good going forward, but I think getting back in, it's like we were saying, up creating an overload, yeah, and he definitely put crosses in. But at the same time, I think if you're going to go to a flat back five, he's the one weak link. I think he'd be tempted to go forward again. So it's
okay. We'll take him off for now.
I think we start off the obvious one. I think he definitely would be one of the wing backs.
Yeah. Okay.
I think slightly interesting. I think it's between maybe one of them two for that side.
Okay. I've not considered Wijnaldum for that. Go ahead.
I think Klein.
Why Wijnaldum? I
just think he's got the engine, and I didn't think when we signed him he had necessarily the discipline to play in midfield. And me and Aubrey used to disagreed about it when we first got him. But he proved me wrong really, and I think he's really. He goes unnoticed, and I think everyone knows that to a large extent, but he's just, I like how we were talking about Chan last week and how he lacks discipline positionally and doesn't play always in his position. I think he's got it, and I think he's intelligent enough to know, much in the same way Milner is, that if he gets given a role, what's expected of him in the role, how to do it, and he'll just do that and be diligent with it.
Now, if you were to say Wijnaldum gets the nod over Nathaniel Klein, who are your centre midfielders?
It varies, but I think the problem you get, when you come into this is where do you fit Lallana into this team? And I think, again, I don't think he's got the most pace.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to be inside with people around him who've got pace, and I think obviously Henderson's got to be in there for me. He's going to replicate your kind of Kante, in the Chelsea mould of doing the legwork and getting around and breaking play up. And I think Lallana, like I say, you need him in the team somewhere for me because he's one of our best players, and you want him. It's not really how Chelsea do it, although Matic has got a lot of assists, but you want him kind of linking up with the attack, I think, from midfield. So.
Okay, now, I forced you into Wijnaldum there. Who would you be happiest with?
I think if it was Klopp, I think he'd go with Klein just because he favours him.
Okay.
I'd be happier with Wijnaldum, but I think that's what he'd go with.
I'll put Wijnaldum there for you. Okay, and then moving on to the attack then, I suppose. It's just the same as it always is.
For me, I think he comes in on the left, he starts up top. I think he starts there. I can't say. I think maybe there's a case to swap them, but then having said that, Hazard plays out wide for Chelsea, so I don't see why Mane would move, to be honest. But I think that'd be the front three.
Okay, I mean, I must admit, I really do like that as a formation. I think we've got the key things there that we can replicate from Chelsea's. I'm going to throw this out there because I've not considered it until now. Right, so I'm going to just put them down a second. What about this? Because he played left wing for Newcastle. So he understands that role when he gets forwards. You're saying he might have the discipline to do it in a defensive sense. Milner's naturally right-footed anyway, if you're saying Milner can do it. I wonder if there's an option for something like that. Now, I suppose, long-term, for me, this is a problem, and this is a problem as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if we are replicating the Chelsea mould, right? Matip is great moving in, and he's great with the ball. We saw that against Leicester, actually, didn't we? When he picked the ball up, played a little 1-2, broke into the box. Mane Lallana played a 1-2 and fed the ball over to Matip. It was a great defensive action in the end that cleared the ball. But Matip was the furthest player forward. So I think he's definitely got that in his locker. For me, it's about leaving these two in space again. It's about what are these two like when attackers are coming into them, and I just don't think that these two have the pace to be able to do that, because I think we would play a very high line. I do think down the line there is an option for, where is he? I saw him a minute ago. Him there, to be honest with you. If he can continue his development, I think he's a player who we saw against Leeds and we saw in some League Cup games that he can do that. He's quite comfortable. He's fast for a start. So I'd like to see, maybe if we are going towards this, that Joe Gomez starts to get some games in that centre back. And then Klavan's an experienced, clever player. And I think maybe his experience will mask over some of his things that could cause problems.
I think as well where they play. I mean, I think if you have him on this side, if this is what we went with, you've kind of got I think Henderson and Matip would kind of drop in this side, and you'd have Milner on the left doing a lot of the legwork. So this bit, there's no pace here, but there's a lot of hard work, I think, from Milner that would probably cover him, maybe not having pace.
And I tell you what, moving it on slightly, I know Liverpool fans aren't going to like this, to be perfectly honest with you, but, you know, when you're talking about keeping your side fresh, this guy here can do a job, because these aren't now wingers in this formation. These are inside forwards. And I think that becomes a bit more of an Adam Lallana position. And I'm not saying it's for Phil Coutinho, by the way. I'm saying it could be either. And it could be that this man goes here, and he goes here, and he goes here, or something like that. Because I don't think these positions quite rely on pace in the same way that they do now in the wide areas. I think obviously Hazard and Pedro have got space, but moreover, it's about making these runs, and I'm going to leave this side on the board for now. It's about making these runs in and beyond Roberto Firmino, and then Firmino can kind of do what he wants and create a little bit of space. James Milner, I worry whether he's got the engine to be able to do this, to be honest. I know Sadio Mane or Nathaniel Klein would have. This is a problem area for me, and this is a problem area for me. Other than that, I think everybody can do those jobs.
I think they can. One thing I would say is, and only because we've seen it in the past, I think, how do you feel if maybe at some point he slots in there?
That's not a bad shout at all. You know, we saw him at a centre-back. We saw him actually in that left centre-back position. He gets the assist from there.
He does.
Because he strides forward, he plays a 1-2 with Moreno on the left-hand side, slots it inside to Phil Coutinho, little shimmy, back of the net. And that's something that you can afford to do. Because Emre Can, as I've mentioned on the shows this week already, when the ball's given to him in centre midfield, he gets the ball and then he looks up and goes, where am I going to pass the ball? Right. What Jordan Henderson does is he gets the ball, he knows where he's going to pass it, and it's that slow speed of thought that I think fails Chan. But what happens when he picks the ball up and everything's in front of him? He can make his decision on the move. If he's in a little bit of space, he's got time to look up, he's got time to stride on, and then he can make the right decision. And then it's about this man getting back and covering for him. And it's about having trust in your teammates. This is what the thing with all football tactics are, isn't it? Whether you're playing 4-3-3, 3-4-3, 4-2-3-1, whatever, you've got to trust that if you do break the mould, your teammates are going to have your back. And I think sometimes that Emre Can, when he's playing that 6-4s in the 4-3-3, his teammates don't know what he's going to do. And as such, they are not sure whether they should overcommit forwards in case Can breaks out of that formation. As such, when he's playing this role, it's very, very easy because you've still got two men to roll over, and then you're relying on this guy to come back in if one of these midfielders can't go forwards. It's quite interesting, though. What do you think, on the whole, do you think this is a formation that Liverpool might move towards for the end of the season?
I think we've got the personnel to do it, like you say. It's not something he's done. You know, I'm only going off history, and I've never seen Klopp really use this in the past. Anything I've seen of him do, he's got to do something. I think is the point. We've got to do something to stop how we're playing, because we're drifting through games. Is this the answer? I think it's something that's in vogue a bit, and because of how Chelsea are doing it, they've set the standard kind of thing. I think he'd look to go to something else. I think you'd see maybe 4-2-3-1 or different playing personnel come in. I think he might try and explore his options a bit more rather than change the formation, because I think, as well as things that we've discussed about maybe some obvious issues over on this left side, I think he's coached him into that 6 for a reason. And I think, again, there's issues of, I know obviously this wasn't maybe set in stone, but how do you keep him up there? And I think it's horses for courses. I think the 4-3-3 suits the players, whereas this maybe, even though they could play it, doesn't suit them as well. Yeah,
I think that's a good point, and I think, you know, I've said so many times over the last few weeks that I think it's going to be 4-2-3-1, so I won't badger on about that anymore. But, you know, right now, as you say, we've got to change something. And I think for me, it's a case of, well, we're not going to get any more players in, but the 4-3-3 is not working. I don't think we've got the striker for the 4-3-2-1, the 4-2-3-1, sorry. So I wonder whether we are going to see this slightly more, maybe against some low block sides, maybe just to, if nothing from an offensive point of view, just from a defensive point of view, whereby we can have an extra man back if teams are breaking on us. And I think that could be a reason for Liverpool to go for, not for all of this, more for this that happens down here. Anyway, we're going to go over to the Ask Me Anything segment of the show now. Thanks very much for watching. We'll continue over on the couches.